Rented a haunted house, a spiritual story told by a male friend. He said he and two other friends, the one named Guy, the one named Trang, all of whom were students, went to see that house around noon. At 6 p.m., I was very tired because I had to look for a house all day. The house is located in an area of 4 to 5 different houses, sharing the same entrance gate, and the house you rent is located in a hidden corner at the far end. Inside the house there are 3 floors, each floor has a small room and a toilet, and on the ground floor there is a small kitchen that can only stand enough for one person. The homeowner told him over and over again, when you enter a house, you must worship carefully every month on the 1st and 16th of the lunar month and not ignore it. The only things that need to be offered are flowers, a box of cakes, and incense. Just putting it in a glass of rice is enough. There are small shrines around the house, all of which belong to the neighbor's deceased relatives. Don't look at them casually. When you come home at night, don't hang around these graves. In the house, there is an altar facing the door. Absolutely do not display offerings on it. It must always be empty, even a glass of water. Do not put it on. If you invite someone outside to sleep, remember to put on a mask before entering the house. At first when you heard these things, you thought it was too shady and you also asked why, but only received an answer like the feng shui around here is not good so we have to make offerings, but this type of house only affects people. It only affects the head of the household, but it's okay for us to stay, so just stay. Some students have been renting here for a few years now, but just moved out because you raised the room price. The people here are very picky and judgmental. It took a lot of effort for me to take my friends home and they called the police for a temporary examination. If you stay temporarily away, you will be punished. After hearing that answer, I don't understand why you didn't ask again, but it was okay. That time renting a house was probably because it was already dark. Hearing such unreasonable conditions, I still closed my eyes and signed the lease contract, leading to regret later, not knowing it was bad luck. The devil made it or something. When everyone had moved in and your sister named Nhan was the last to move in. Even though they are siblings, they have completely different personalities. If you talk a lot and are messy, Nian is more careful and attentive. Right from the moment he entered, he showed an unpleasant attitude because the house had a bad location, was dark, and was too old. When he moved in, he even cursed. I don't know if I'll encounter anything bad when I live in houses like this. My friend at that time was very upset because when he moved house he was still in the countryside and couldn't help me. Now that he's moved in, he's nagging me, so the two of us had a big argument. After arguing back and forth for a while, Nian left to clean the ground floor and the kitchen because she needed space to cook. At that time, it was around 7 to 8 am, very quiet. In the house only you were still sleeping on the 3rd floor and Trang was sleeping on the 2nd floor. Downstairs in the kitchen, Nian was cleaning when she heard a continuous sound like someone was going down the stairs. He didn't pay attention because he thought someone was about to leave the house. He listened for about 5 minutes. Nian felt a bit strange because he heard footsteps and kept walking but didn't see anyone coming down. I looked up to see who was up there. At this moment I could only see a pair of long, lanky black legs, in the middle of the stairs to the 1st floor connecting to the 2nd floor, and on those feet there were no slippers or shoes on. There were only 2 loose legs hanging down, continuously stomping on the stairs, and above was just air. Not to mention, those legs were too long compared to normal human legs. They kept rubbing each other, then stomping thud on the white tile floor. Actually, Leon is not the average person. Now you and he have experienced strange things in the countryside, no less than 10 times, so in this situation he decided to calm down, stay silent and continue cleaning. Clean it up, pretend you never saw anything. Even though he said it calmly, Leon was very shy at that time. He crawled into the toilet on the ground floor, texted you, called you to come down with him. At that time he was shaking so much that the words he texted were all wrong. When you received the text message, you were a bit shocked, but because you've been here for about 2 days and haven't seen anything, you're just a little suspicious. Just go down slowly. After texting his friend, he opened the toilet door, glanced sideways, looked up the stairs again before going out. As soon as he stepped out and looked up to wait for his friend to come down, his eyes immediately caught sight of a middle-aged woman with dark skin, dark face, curly hair, wearing a floral elastic outfit like the aunties in the countryside often wear. There. She looked straight at him with a face of unknown shape. Her lips were plump as if she wanted to say something but naturally gradually disappeared. At that moment, you just ran down to the place. Leon tensed up and ran straight to the room, crying as she ran. After going to the room, Leon cried and told her friend what she saw. She said she had to move house, it was not good here. The people who used to live in this house were not like the ghosts she used to be. See, there is something very bad in this house. At that time, you could only listen and hum along, but had no intention of moving because you had already finished moving the house, not to mention the rental contract had also been signed. If you cancelled the contract now you would have to pay the full price. How much money did 2 months cost? That night, your friend went out, Leon stayed in the room alone. You didn't understand why this girl was so brave, seeing her twice but still lying in the room. The room you and Leon share is on the 3rd floor, has a window leading to the outside and the toilet is also outside the room. At that time, Leon was on for time telling stories at home to a college classmate. This child also had some psychic abilities, so Leon thought she might be able to ask for some advice or something, or immediately. At that time, he just wanted someone to talk to so he wouldn't be scared. The two were still talking happily, even talking about Leon asking to stay in the dorm with her friend, because she felt so unstable here. While joking with each other, the other girl suddenly turned off the phone and texted back, "Run out now." Without having time to ask anything again, Nhen rushed out immediately on 3 legs. As soon as he got to the gate, he called the other girl back and asked what just happened. The other child spoke in a trembling voice, about to cry, "When you and I were talking, I saw behind you a woman with an invisible black face, standing outside the window looking in, and you said your room was in its the 3rd floor." Hearing that, he was so scared that he ran away. He asked to go to his friend's house where he lived for a week before he dared to return. When he returned, he insisted that everyone move to another place immediately, but almost no one believed what he said. Until the second time sisters Dai and Trang met did they believe it. The 2 sisters Dai and Trang live on the 2nd floor. These 2 sisters are also opposite to each other. Dai follows Christianity and has not believed in spiritual things since childhood. Even when it comes to fortune telling or anything, Dai doesn't believe it at all. But after a few things happened in this house, things will probably be different. The room the 2 sisters lived in had the same area as the room on the 3rd floor that you and Leon lived in. The only difference was that the toilet was always in the room. That night they were both at home. Trang went to take a shower. That day, Trang took a long shower. Normally, no one would count the time other people take a shower, but I found it strange because that day Trang took a shower for 2 hours. I called outside for a while but got no answer. Feeling a bit strange, I knocked on the door repeatedly but still did not see any reaction from Trang, but the sound of water was still flowing steadily. She was so scared that she slammed open the bathroom door and rushed in, only to see Trang standing in front of the mirror caressing her face, staring at the mirror without blinking, still fully dressed and not bathed at all. I pulled Trang's hand away and shouted loudly. Trang then mumbled and asked, "Are you calling me?" I replied, "What have you been doing in there for the past 2 hours?" At this point, Trang was startled, her goosebumps all stood up, and she said in a sad voice, "I walked into the bathroom and saw someone already inside." Before I could scream, he covered my mouth. He hugged me again and led me away, telling me I was coming in and I was his. As she spoke, she cried. At that time, I was so confused because of what was happening right in front of her eyes, but she did not dare to believe it. She comforted Trang for a while, then ran upstairs to call the two brothers to come down to talk. After listening to Trang's story, Nian also told the story from the previous day. Hearing the part where the woman's face was so black that she couldn't see her face clearly, Trang was startled and shouted, "That's right, that guy I saw in the toilet was also completely black, his body was long, his face and nose were not visible anywhere." The four of us looked at each other in fear, glanced around and decided to go out to sleep, rather than staying in this house, not knowing if we would still be alive tomorrow. When going down to the gate, I forgot the key and told her friend to go up and search together, while Nian and Trang waited below. Upon reaching the room, I searched the whole room looking for it but couldn't find it. You even traced each step to see if it fell somewhere because I was looking for it and assured that she had put the key in the basket. From the beginning, I only searched in Lai's room, but now I have to search the entire house in a state of extreme fear. You're superstitious, so try telling Lai to pray in your mouth. If someone hides it, give it back to you. If you stand here and can't walk, it's so disgusting. A few days after the previous events, Nian brought his friend home. Only now do you know that the child's name is Than, and since childhood he has had psychic and psychic abilities. As soon as he entered the house, he gasped as if someone had punched him in the chest. Just as he was about to help him up, he waved his hand. "The negative energy here is too heavy. A normal person who stays here for a few days and a half a month would go crazy." Then he went into the house, looked up the stairs, and called out, "You and me and the baby, please go upstairs for me, let me talk to my brothers and sisters for a bit." By this time, a group of people standing below were extremely confused, sweating like rain, holding their breath in tension. Than didn't say anything more, just went inside, looked around every corner of the house for a while, looking most closely at the kitchen, the empty altar and the ground floor toilet. After watching, Than said the whole family should go out and talk, because there were many bad things in the house. If he opened his mouth to speak, he might be beaten on the spot. Outside, walking another 100 meters, Than stopped and asked, "When you guys returned home, didn't you see anything strange here?" In front of the house, there are 4 to 5 shrines, not to mention there is no one in them to worship anyone. Every neighbor's house hangs a strawberry branch in front of their house. But the house has hung strawberries. It's a house with ghosts. Having said this, The group's limbs became weak and they did not dare to open their mouths to argue again, so they listened to the voice continue. The house you guys live in, the feng shui is all wrong. Even the altar placed there, it was not natural that it was empty. An empty altar is to worship the dead. Incense and pictures are not on the altar, the gods cannot be seen, and there is no knowing that there are dead in that house. But this death is very unpleasant, and it dies early, so it must be worshipped every month. Hearing this, it took me a long time to remember what the homeowner said. He only talked briefly about the house's bad feng shui, and did not mention the church's demise. By this time, everyone's tears were flowing profusely. Trang and Nian fell down on the street, unable to get up again. Before leaving, Fan added, I already asked someone, so let's just move in for the time being, no problem. Just don't use the bathroom on the ground floor anymore, it's best to close it. After a while, you call the homeowner to talk and then move on. But even if you say that, little Fan doesn't live in this house. If unfortunately, they promised that, and when they get to the house, they feel sad and do something else, then there is really only the possibility of leaving home and going back to the countryside. And then the 4 kids at home didn't dare to go home, they just stood in front of the gate asking themselves, what should we do now? I don't know what now. After struggling for a while, you remembered that the cat was still in the house and hadn't opened the cage yet to let it out. Now when I go in, I'm afraid, but if I don't go in, I don't feel secure. Suddenly, you and your sister went inside to get the cat out. As soon as you opened the door, it was lying in front of the door, with a vomit in its mouth, feces coming out of its anus and wetting its fur. Breathing heavily as if about to die. You were so scared, you immediately carried him to the hospital. As I ran, I was scared and angry at myself for being so stupid and not being able to protect my cat, leading to this situation. When he got to the clinic, the doctor said he was hit in the stomach with a strong force, like he fell from a high place, so he vomited and spit out stool like that. Not to mention, it still has bruises on its stomach. It's still very weak right now, so it has to be left there tonight for a checkup. You were so angry, crying and hitting your head because you were so helpless and didn't know what to do. At that moment, Fan called Nian and said he was seeing his friend. Fan said, just now there were some things I wanted to tell you there, but there was someone following me out. I'll wait until they return home before I dare call you. At this point you were too tired, no matter what happened, you weren't surprised anymore, you just said yes and Fan continued. In that house, I know you're the only one who wasn't scared. Because there was a girl in that house who passed away, the girl Nian saw. She saw him enter the house. He was the same age as her son when he was alive, so she thought he was her son. She didn't let the others in the house mess with him, afraid he would get too scared and leave. But there was someone in that family who refused, just covering their eyes and waiting for an opportunity to show him. That girl couldn't follow him all the time, but his cat, its spirituality was very high. It saw people watching its cat next to him and it ruffled its feathers, it wheezed and growled to get people to get away. Please remember not to leave it alone in the house. Be careful of people harming it. Besides, the death of a family member is not normal, it's very tragic. I didn't dare tell Nian, I was afraid he would get scared and not dare go home. In that toilet, the mother and daughter of that family crawled in to avoid the fire. In the end, they both hugged each other and died in the fire. Hearing this, you were also very surprised, Your mind was only worried about saving the cat, after instructing the doctor to take care of the cat. You call the landlord and tell him everything that happened in the past few days. At that time, although very panicked, you also tried to calmly speak clearly, hoping the boss would understand this situation and help. After listening, the homeowner did not show any attitude, just said that there was no problem with people staying there now. Maybe it was just our imagination. He even said that you were lying, that you had just made up nonsense when you moved in. At that moment, you really wanted to punch this unreasonable person in the face, because you guessed that he probably knew what was going on in the house, because there is no normal house where the homeowner would say such things. That's all the advice. After a while, the whole group made an appointment with the homeowner the next morning to talk and resolve the issue together. Therefore, the whole family of 5 people, including Fong, who had never been home before, decided to sleep over at the house tonight, so that they could meet the landlord early the next day. And the group didn't know, it was an unforgettable night. Actually, there were not only 5 people in the house that night. Because you were so scared, you decided to invite 2 more friends to sleep with you to cheer you up, DN and CUONG. At that time, when the 2 arrived, it was still early, around 7 p.m. You ran out to welcome them both in, not remembering the thing: if you come to play, you must wear a mask before entering the house. That night, the whole family cooked and played together happily. Part of it isn't stubbornness, but in a place like that, if we don't find a way to lift each other's mood, we'll probably all go crazy before anything happens. After eating and drinking for a while, the atmosphere also slackened, and the group sat down to talk about things in the house. While everyone was listening attentively, Fong suddenly reacted: "What do you think now? I don't believe it. Guess who dares to scare me?" They all turned pale, seeing him a little drunk. They asked one of them to take him to bed first in the room on the 2nd floor. After cleaning up, everyone went to bed, divided into 2 rooms. You, DN, CUONG, Trang sleep on the 3rd floor. On the 2nd floor, Nian, Fong, and I sleep. At that time, I tried to go to bed early. I was already in bed around 11 a.m. At around 3 a.m., DN woke his friend up and asked, "Hey, why didn't you call me when I went to the toilet?" You asked dreamily, "Where are you going, DN?" "I've been sleeping here all this time." DN rolled her eyes, her feathers all stood up. She stammered, "Oh my gosh, I had to pee just now but I didn't dare go alone. I was lying down and saw you get up to pee so I followed. But I've been waiting for you to leave but I haven't seen you yet. I thought I was falling asleep just now so you just walked in without calling me. I just finished peeing inside." What a mess. After listening, you wake up completely. You also think in your head, "Fuck it already. Just now, when I took DN and CUONG into the house, I forgot to cover my face." You looked over at CUONG and saw that he was still sleeping soundly. You turned back and said to DN, "Okay, try to go back to sleep, DN, otherwise we'll lie down and talk. Let's forget what happened earlier." DN obeyed and lay down. The 2 of them lay down and looked at each other silently without saying a word. After lying down for less than 5 minutes, Nian ran up and called urgently, "Brother Hai, come down and check the wind, it's very strange." You and DN hurriedly called the other 2 to wake up and ran down to the 2nd floor. At this time, Fong was in a coma, not saying anything clearly. Guy is infected with people calling her name continuously but to no avail. The whole group looked at each other and looked at each other. Just like that for a while, you risked another slap in the face. He mumbled 2 more times, then woke up gasping for breath, trembling and recounting, "I was sleeping, I dreamed that I saw a man outside the door. He slowly opened the door and looked into this room. At that time, I tried to scream and hit everyone with my ears in all sorts of ways, but no one woke up. Then he smiled at me, a very evil smile. Everyone was scared, so they immediately packed their bags and left the house at 3:30 a.m. After running away from the house, they all went to a nearby convenience store to hide. Everyone bowed their heads, tired and speechless. They sat like that until morning. No one said anything to anyone. Wait until after 7 a.m. The whole group headed home, preparing for the meeting with the homeowner this morning. By this time, everyone had made up their mind, no matter what, we have to move out. No matter what. But no matter how aggressive they were when they entered, when they arrived at the front door, they were all weak and stubborn. The front yard has been splashed with black paint and shrimp paste. We've only been out here for 3 hours, what's going on here? Looking from the outside gate, the inside wall to the floor, even your car in the front yard is covered with a lot of stickiness. Not to mention, the black paint box was still outside the door, the half-thrown shrimp paste bottle was also stuck on the gate like a threat. It looked absolutely disgusting. This happened to me at 7 a.m., while 3 hours ago I was so scared that I was scared to death. The 3 daughters, Nian, Bai, and Trang, collapsed and cried on the spot. Fong and Fong were now calmer and opened the door to take a look inside. There was a lot of paint on the wall, spilled onto the floor. If you look closely, you can see that the cat's bowl of sand was also wet with paint. At this point, you were really confused, even scared, but you tried to calm down, calm your 3 daughters to stop crying, and then go ask the neighbors. The whole group went around that area, asking each person one by one if they had accidentally or noticed anyone entering your house. But wherever I go, I only get the answer, "I don't know, I don't see anything." And they also said that they woke up early but didn't see anyone or anything strange. Now when you ask them, you see this. Actually, hearing those words was very unbelievable to you at that time. You believe that this house is truly haunted, but why would a ghost play around throwing shrimp paste and black paint into the house? It sounds so absurd. After going around asking around without any results, you call to ask if the landlord has come yet. The homeowner said he was on his way. You also didn't say anything about splashing paint, wait until you say it once. After that, the whole group decided to go into the house to see if anything was suspicious and had changed after last night. They discovered a few things. First, it is impossible to splash paint from outside to create a mark on the wall like this, because the gate is very high. If sprayed from above it will stick to the higher wall, not as low as like this. And if you cross low outside, it won't work, because the gate is a piece of iron with many small holes. Second, even though the gate was broken and the inside wall was broken, but the house lock is still clean. While obviously if you stand from above and pour at least a little bit will stick on the lock. But no, the lock was completely clean, the ground was covered in paint with shoe prints. But by the time everyone returned, the paint was dry. So why do neighbors say they don't know anything? So you've thought about the possibility of someone opening the door and entering the house and splashing paint. But who did that? while all of your friends only have one key and they're all stuck outside the convenience store. At this point, you remember that because you were so busy with strange things in the house, you never changed the old lock that the homeowner left behind, and is it possible that the homeowner has a key just in case? You're not sure about that. A while later, the homeowner arrived. You tell everything. He still denies that this house is haunted and says you're making it up. As for the paint splash thing, the guy who owns it is because he's selling this house. And someone forced the price, he refused to sell, so they did that. Hearing this, you were very surprised, swearing that you must have had a very bad or bad fate that day to meet the owner of such an immoral lifestyle. Saying those lies without shame, you asked, "How do you deal with us now?" The owner at that time only said this, "If you don't want to stay anymore, that's fine. Now that things have happened, it will be considered that both parties voluntarily terminated the contract. But now I can't pay the kids' rent this month, I can only return the deposit. So if you want to stay, you can stay, and you can all move out at the end of the month." At that moment, you just wanted to punch this guy a few times because of his damn shamelessness. I know clearly that you can't stay in the house anymore. Everyone was so scared, and it was impossible for you to have to immediately look for a new home. But at that time you were afraid. All of them were only first and second year students, all students trying to stay in a foreign land. No money, no acquaintances. I don't know anyone I can count on. And it's not even clear who did the paint splashing thing. You have no evidence to convict the boss. And one more thing, he didn't even look surprised when he saw that the house was dirty. And with all that, the whole group still had to accept and move away in frustration and humiliation. They all moved away one by one in silence. A few days later the house was completely normal and there were no more problems. There's only one small thing that reminds you of it now. At that time, you were drying clothes outside the window on the third floor, when suddenly a strong wind blew one of your shirts very far away. If you think about it, your mother will lose her beautiful shirt. Suddenly, for some reason, the wind changed direction and the shirt turned around and fell on the roof next to it, next to the second floor window. Just reach out your hand to get it. Later, you asked Than, and she didn't say clearly, but she was probably a middle-aged girl with a black face and regret, so she wanted to help him with something before he left. And after that day, the whole group left the house and did not return. However, the house still exists. I don't know who will be the next tenant, and this is the end of the story. If you find the story interesting, please give me one like and one subscriber. I hope everyone has fun listening to the story. See you all people in the following videos. Goodbye.